Hi guys, Jasmo here, and today I have for you a little guide for the EK Trickster I've been playing. This is a character that is basically my project for this league. It's a very comfortable character to map. I am very quickly zooming through T16s. I'm gonna show you some footage of like level 83 delving and then also killing some bosses if I can fit that, and also mapping. Like, the character is mostly like a speed mapper. It's a very easy character to map with, and I definitely like this playstyle. It's pretty much my favorite playstyle in the whole game. That's why I made this character. The character still can be improved by a lot, but I'm basically gonna talk about what we have here right now. So I'll go over things like basically in order. Let's start maybe with the gems, right? So we're playing an EK build, and the basic idea of the build is that we're taking the Ethereal Knife, which is a 100% physical damage spell, and then we are converting it to lightning damage with physical to lightning support that takes care of 50% of that, and then physical damage converted to lightning as a craft on our gloves, and then the remaining 25% we need to get from Watcher's Eye, which we have here. 35% of physical damage converted to lightning damage while affected by Wrath, and that's why we are also using Wrath. So that first step takes care of all the physical damage is now converted to lightning. Then we are converting that lightning damage with Call of the Brotherhood to cold damage, and we are converting everything except for 4%, right? So we are converting 96% of that lightning to cold, which means we deal like very little lightning and then cold, and then half of that cold we're also converting to fire with a cold to fire support. So in the end we end up doing a little bit of lightning and then half fire, half cold, roughly something like that, depending on also how you scale your gear and other damage sources that you have. And then all of that gets put, gets chaos damage put on top of that, like an actual shit ton of chaos damage. So for the supports, you definitely want EK, then you want Fizz to lightning, then you want cold to fire, then you want Spell Echo. Spell Echo is very good for us. If you can get like awakened versions, like Awakened Spell Echo, for example, that's also great. Then I have Controlled Destruction, and then I have Pierce for clearing maps. You could also have Pierce on boots or Pierce from another source or passive skill tree and so on. If you can have Pierce from another source, then you can also use another gem here. Elemental Focus is something that will boost your damage even more than this. The reason why Arcane Surge is not an option for us here is because we're playing EB build, right? But that in a moment. So these are the gems that I have here. Then I'm also using Flame Dash with faster casting with Portal. Portal benefits from the faster casting as well as the Flame Dash. The main movement that we're doing is with Shield Charge, Fortify, and faster attacks. So that's how we're mostly moving around the map, and with tons of attack speed from Trickster and movement speed with our Flasks up, we're zooming really fast through the maps, so that's very nice. Then I have also a Val Blade Vortex. This is very helpful for bosses. Before bosses, you can basically stack up 10 Blade Vortexes, and that's like with pots that over 100k damage. And together with this Blade Vortex, you also have Val Blade Vortex, and then as boss spawns, you basically start using your EK and you melt them with that. And with the Blade Vortex, we're using Controlled Destruction, Fizz to Lightning, and Cold to Fire to benefit from all these chaos things as well. Other than that, we're using for our auras, we're using, just like I said before, Wrath, because we need that for the conversion, and then also it gives us 21% more spell lightning damage, and we convert everything to lightning, so basically 21% more spell damage, and then extra lightning damage that also then gets converted to cold and fire. Other than that, we're using Hatred, which gives us 25% of our physical damage as extra cold, and then also we deal 18% more cold damage, which is what 96% of our damage before the extra chaos and stuff gets added. So that's very nice. Then I also have Clarity. The Clarity I don't really need it because the damage taken gained as mana over 4 seconds doesn't really help us much, since we are reserving pretty much 100% of our mana almost, and then we're using the energy shield, so that I don't think that actually regenerates that for us. And then I also have like level 1 precision on top of that that I was able to fit in here. Besides that, I have cast 1 damage taken, steel skin, and feeble, because I don't have any curse on hit yet, but that will be obviously the next step to get some kind of curse on hit on some corruption on gloves or something like that. Curse on hit would be the next thing that I would like to add to this build that would definitely boost our damage. So that's it when it comes to the gem setup. When it comes to the items, obviously the main piece of the build is the Eternity Shroud. This is a chest that gives us an insane amount of damage. Basically it gives 5% of elemental damage as extra chaos damage per shaper item equipped. And as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? 11? 10 or 11? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10. So that is 50% of elemental damage as extra chaos. So we're getting 50% of lightning, 50% of cold, and 50% of fire as extra chaos damage. So that is almost 250% damage extra. Like everything we're dealing, 200% 50 extra on top of that as chaos, which is insane, right? And then we also have on our other items like gain 10% physical damage as extra element, and then that gets converted, that gets added as chaos. We have like gain 11% of fizz as extra chaos. We have here like gain fizz as extra cold, and so on. We get so many like extra damage added, and I'm still crafting the gear. I'm like not even halfway done with the gear, so the build can definitely pop off even more. But we're getting basically like 250 damage multiplier from the Eternity Shroud. And on top of that, hits ignore enemy monster chaos resistance if all equipped items are shaper items. And in Path of Building, I checked, that gives us about 40% DPS on bosses, right? That gives us about 40% increased damage on bosses because we have the shaped Call of the Brotherhood mainly. That's the most difficult item to get shaped. It costed about, let's check what it costs now. Shaper, Call of the Brotherhood, 9 exalted right now. Okay, you can get the cheapest one for 9 exalts if you can get the Prophecy, Trash to Treasure, or if you can chance scour the 2-stone ring with cold and lightning resistances, then you can get them possibly cheaper. But 9 exalts is what they go for now. And when I bought the Trash to Treasure prophecies, I bought them for like 9 exalts as well, something like that as well. Eternity Shroud right now, 6 length. How much does it cost? 6 length without the white, 3 exalted, 4 exalted, so it's way cheaper than it was before. I bought it when it was for like 10x, and then I 6 linked it myself, so definitely way cheaper right now, because it's not that popular this league, but early on it was difficult to get, but now it's like there are so many of them that it's definitely much cheaper. So that's the pretty much one of the more difficult pieces of gear, like the Calls of the Brotherhood and then the chest. Other than that, the pieces of gear that I have like kind of complete are the gloves, the boots, and the shield. So those I'm very happy with. Everything else I'm still like crafting, I'm gonna be replacing it. So let's look at the gloves first, because that's something that you're gonna need to have very early, because you definitely need the physical damage converted to lightning damage. So what I have here is a shaped pair of fingerless silk gloves, and I think they need to be level 85 in order to get the socketed gems are supported by slower projectiles. You can get a much better roll. You can get, this is a tier 3, which is the worst, but you can get a tier 1 projectiles, and then you can also get blind on hit, which also helps your defenses a lot. So we have blind on hit, and we have increased projectile damage, which is global. Then we have tier 2 life. I can replace that and craft that to tier 1 life, but I have a lot of life to roll on other things as well first, so I'm happy with T2 for now. And then we have T1 cold res, and then we have lightning res as well, right? So this is a pretty spicy pair of gloves, and of course 16% increased spell damage from the base, and of course it's a shaper item because we need that for this. So the way I recommend crafting these gloves is you basically alteration spam until you get the slower projectiles roll on them, and maybe slower projectiles and blind if you want that. And then you augment life and 2 resistances, and then you craft the prefix physical damage converted to lightning damage, and that's it, and you're done with the gloves. Very easy to make. Then I have boots. I made a video about boots, separate video about boots. Basically you need Shaper and Hunter base. Because this is Shaper and Hunter base, it cannot have elusive. That's why we have elusive from the skill tree. So many people were like saying completely like stupid comments in the video of these boots, like why doesn't have elusive, blah blah blah. But they don't understand that I'm playing a build that requires this to be a Shaper item, and then also need it to be a Hunter item in order to get the tailwind, right? So that's why it cannot have elusive on this. Other than that, I alt rolled for movement speed until I got 35%, and then I crafted the resistances on it. I crafted life, all with harvest, augment crit for guaranteed tailwind, and then craft on the bench cannot be frozen because I don't want to use a flask, because I'm using 3 unique flasks in this build, so I don't have space for the freeze removal or anywhere from the items to get that. So that's why we're getting this pair of boots. And of course, two-toned pair of boots is the best because it gives you the extra resistances. And then we have the super nuts shield, which is so powerful. I'm so happy with this shield. It took a while to craft it, but basically it has recover 5% of energy shield and 5% of life when you block, and we're using EB, so this is basically recovering all of our life. It's more efficient that way, right? Because we're recovering the energy shield and life at the same time as we're taking damage, because I'm, you know, MOM and EB, right? So energy shield protects my mana, and when I take damage, 30% of that damage is taken from mana, which means from energy shield. So instead of having the energy shield on life, and first I lose this and then I lose this, I lose 1/3 roughly from this at the same time as I lose this. So that means effectively I have over 6k health here, even though this only says 4.8, because this adds to my health pool up to 30% of the value of my life, right? So like 1.4, 1.5k of this is, I think, effectively used for my life pool. So that's why we have recover energy shield and life when we block. Also, recover the energy shield when we block helps with our mana sustain if we ever need, if we are running no region map, for example. But we have so many sources of that. We have energy shield leech from this here, so percentage of our spell damage is leached as energy shield. We have decent regen, so that, as you can see, this gets recovered very quickly. And then we also have that's like from the region that we have, and then we also get like recovery when we don't take damage from the energy shield. It will just start going back up. So we have tons of ways of recovering our energy shield, which is part of our life and part of our mana, so it's very, very useful for that. The rest of the shield is 2% to all max res, which means we have 77% of all max res by default. Then we have 12% chance to block spell damage, which means we are spell block capped, 75% spell block, 74% of attack block. And then we have 109 to maximum life, which is like the highest possible roll on a T1 roll for life. And on top of that, it also gives me damage, 11 to 13, which is tier 1 percentage of physical damage as extra chaos. If I can get this to be gain 13% of lightning damage as extra chaos damage, that will be the nuts roll, because I actually deal more lightning damage than physical before the conversion, because it does still work, it does still add the damage right before the conversion, but because of things like, for example, Holy Dominion or like increased elemental damage here and there, then the elemental damage value, even though I convert 100% to 100%, the elemental value is still scaled even higher than the physical, so that's why the elemental would be better, right? I even have like divine judgment and so on, so that would be the better one to get. But that shield is pretty nuts, and also it gives me dodge to spell hits, so it's very, very good. And 30 quality as well, like all of this 30 quality, 30 quality. This is not 30 quality because I still can get a better pair. Then we have helmet. Helmet is just like beginning, like I didn't even craft it much. What you want is like added cold damage to spells, added lightning damage to spells, and then you can have life, and triple res, including like chaos, which I'm gonna put on that as well. Then for an amulet, you want a chance to block spell damage, global crit multi, global crit chance, resistance, and then you want to gain lightning damage as extra, gain 15% of fizz as extra lightning, and gain 15% of fizz as extra cold. And that's how you finish off this amulet. And we're anointing arcane potency, which is this 30% crit multi, 30% crit chance for spells. This is the highest DPS increase from anoint that I could find on the skill tree that we're not picking up anywhere else. Another thing you could anoint is if you're pathing like differently through here, you could maybe anoint the elusive. That's, for example, another thing you could do, but this is the most damage that we can anoint. Other than that, the belt, for now I'm using rustic sash because I found a base, so I just crafted on that base. And what you want on it is energy shield, because that helps you because you're EV, resistances, percentage increased elemental damage, because that will scale your damage quite a bit, so you can get up to 25%. I have 24 here, you can like divine that up. Then you can also get increased spell damage during any flask effect, and that's basically it. And the ideal would be Stygian Vice, right? So that you can also, instead of 24% increased global fizz damage, you will have the Abyssal Jewel, which actually will give you more damage and potentially extra life as well. So the Stygian Vice would be the end game goal, and you could like replace the maximum energy shield prefix for like a hunter influence percentage life. That would be another thing you could add. And then the final piece is the weapon. The weapon is so complicated. I honestly have not figured out the optimal setup for the weapon yet, because there are so many insane mods you can get on it. You can get cast speed, you can get crit chance, you can get crit multi, you can get spell damage, you can get gain percentage of fizz damage as extra fire, cold, gain lightning as extra chaos. I think the gain 10% of physical damage as extra damage of random element is also good. Gain the non-chaos damage as extra chaos is the best, like probably by far, because you're gaining fizz, lightning, cold, and fire as extra chaos. It counts all of them. Similarly to this ascendancy, or to harness the void, the chance to gain percentage of non-chaos counts separately, like your physical, your lightning, your cold, and your fire, so you get bonuses for all of those, right? So that's basically it. So those are the items pretty much, other than the flasks. For flasks, at Series Promise is just beyond crazy. Like you gain 20% of the fizz and 15% of elemental as extra chaos, and also you gain a massive amount of leech, like 1 EK, and you heal to full with like basically this is crazy. Taste of Hate. This is extra physical damage as cold, so 20% extra damage as cold, and then some like less cold damage taken. That's cool. Then we have a Silver Flask, this one because it gives me some regen and recovery for my life, and energy shield, because at the same time I recover my life basically from this way and from this way, right? So that's similar to how we have it on the shield, we also have it on the flask. And then just Quicksilver Flask, remove bleeding, remove curse on a diamond flask, and that's it. I'm not using a life flask, and every single boss that I'm doing without the life flask. And here's how I can do it, because I don't have really any innate leech. Like we have lightning damage leech as life, but I'm gonna remove this soon because I'm trying to reroll this for fizz damage added as lightning, and then we deal very little lightning damage, so this doesn't do anything for me pretty much. It's not noticeable even. So the way I do this is by basically avoiding damage and recovery, and just bursts of leech, and that is enough to kill honestly all conquerors, or all shaper bosses, all what's it called, all elder bosses. Elder bosses are sometimes a bit tricky, but I haven't died on one yet. I've been doing all elder bosses, shaper bosses, and conquerors on awakener level 8 all the time, and I do them all no problem on this character. However, for awakener 8 I switched to my boss killer, Ball Lightning Miner. This character is still not like, I think if I switched like these 4 flasks for life flasks, like honestly just roll life flasks to not even instant, just to recover as much life as possible, I'd be able to do Awakener 8 on this, but it would take longer and I need to that extra Flasks swapping thing, and maybe I would swap the Pierce for Elemental Focus or something. I don't want to bother doing that, so I just skip Awakener 8 and instead do it on my Ball Lightning character. But every other boss I do on this. The Conquerors, very easy on this character, so no problem for bossing, which is like the EK characters are known for being really shit at bossing. So we are at a high enough damage level that we are managing to kill the bosses. With in combat with my Frenzy and Power Charges, which I get from the Ascendancy, with the Flasks, we're reaching 2 million DPS. POB says 2.2, I think. So 2.2 million DPS, but for single target without Flasks is like 1/3 of that basically. So it's definitely much lower DPS when you are doing just a boss and you don't have any ads or anything to stack your shit up, because this build really ramps up pretty quickly in maps and it goes very fast. So it's much better it shines as a mapping character, but it can still handle bosses at this level. And I think if we can get the buffed damage to like 5 million, which if we roll all of these items and especially the weapon and get like awakened gems and improve also the belt, improve the gloves, and get a couple of more levels and maybe get some like extra jewel here and something else, then it definitely will be able to do that. So let's talk about passive skill tree, because that's another thing that is so complicated for this build. There are so many things that I want to get that it's really difficult to get all of them. So I had to be pretty crafty with this. But I think I managed to arrive at like a decent balance of defense and offense, because I'm not dying at all in like the only thing I'm re-rolling in maps is Elemental Reflect, because obviously Elemental Reflect will just one-shot me instantly. But Physical Reflect is no problem because we deal 0 physical damage. So Phys Reflect, no regen, any other mod I do. I don't care about any other mods. The only mod I don't do is Elemental Reflect. And I haven't died on this character so far in T16s and doing bosses. So definitely I had the right balance of defense and offense. But it does require getting used to the character. So let's go through the beginning. In the beginning you pick up like Fizz and Chaos. But then to save points I switched to here. I pick up crit from this. Extra crit and phase damage, and then we pick up like anything that gives you energy shield, and the life is pretty good, so getting this could be also decent. So we're getting a bunch of life here. Here we got Ring of Blades, which is our EK Nova threshold jewel. Then we got some spell damage leech and evasion. Then we have the elusive. And then we're going through life and energy shield, which we benefit from both to crit. And if I level up and get another point, then I'm gonna path through crit multi to here and just remove this one, because that's a bit more damage this way. Like on the crit multi is still more damage than the crit chance. Then we get some block, because we are capping our spell block and attack block. 74 attack block, 75 spell block, but it's good enough. Then we're also getting the crit multi, EB here, cast speed and movement speed. We got so much cast speed and movement speed and attack speed on this build. Then we're getting some spell damage, because we have a bunch of things that increase our mana as well. This is the Watcher's Eye Jewel. I'm more spell block. I actually don't need this spell block because I'm picking up this here, and this gives me also extra resistances and attack block, which is more valuable than this spell block. And actually my amulet and my shield provide me with enough spell block without these nodes to cap it. But I do pick up this spell block, life, crit, life, jewel. We just got some just generic damage added to spells and life. Then we're going through like cast speed, attack speed, movement speed, and dexterity, because we needed some extra dex. Bunch of life, glancing blows, because we're picking that up because we're capping our block, right, for spell block and attack block. And then the interesting part after Holy Dominion and life is the Thread of Hope, which allows us to pick up the Divine Wrath, which gives us 5% of Fizz as extra lightning, 12% increased elemental damage, and 12% increased physical damage, then 50% increased elemental damage, and then 5% fizz as extra fire, and then again 12% increase elemental, 12% increase physical, and then another thing we're picking up here is the arcane capacitor, which gives us 10% chance to gain arcane surge on kill, which means that we can skip the arcane surge craft on weapon. And that's pretty big because we're getting a ton of damage instead of that. The arcane surge here is necessary because otherwise you can't get it, because we're using EB. The arcane surge has this thing in it. Where is it? I have it here. Okay, so this says gain arcane surge after spending a total of like 461 mana, because this was before going EB. I was using arcane surge in my main links, and that was fine because you spend mana. But when you have EB and you spend energy shield, this does not work. That means also if you're playing like where is it, Weave the Arcane, and your movement skills cost no mana, that's where it doesn't work. Arcane Surge doesn't work with movement skills like Flame Dash or something like that. But with EB, it doesn't work with anything unless, like, there are some tricks where people like reserve mana, and then them spending the mana counts as using the like spending the mana cost by reserving it, and that gives them Arcane Surge. But that's a hassle that I don't want to do, so simply you can just get this with medium ring Thread of Hope, and that way you can gain Arcane Surge on maps and on boss fights that have adds on them. And other than that, Mind Over Matter and the Anointment Arcane Potency, and that's pretty much it. The build is very, very comfortable. The upgrades I already mentioned while talking about the gear, so I don't think I have to go over that again. The benefits of this build are that it doesn't care about any, like, it's powerful enough that it doesn't care about any other mods than just Elemental Reflect. So when you're rolling maps, you just make sure like whatever map you want, right? Like, let's say we want to run, what am I running for T14s? If I were to do that, I think I had like I had a bunch of something. Where is it? Like what? Beach. Okay, let's say we want to run beach, right? So what you do is what I do is first just make sure that I scour all of them, unless they're like rolled in something that I already want, but I scour them, chisel them, alch them all, and then I type reflect, and as you can see, this has reflect fizz, so I ignore that, reflect fizz, I ignore that, I pack it all in my inventory and I can run them all. So that's the only thing you need to do for maps. Everything else, no problem, you just handle everything. It's very fast in maps, it's very fast in delve as well. You'll see some footage in this video of me running through some delve, and it's very pleasant to play. You shatter while you crit, you shatter, you I think stun as well, and you have block, so you don't care about porcupines at all. This is one of the better things about this build, that you don't care about porcupines and you can just destroy everything, run like just brain dead farm maps really quickly. It's great for this league because it's great for any clear speed league. I definitely recommend this build for any clear speed league. EK is so good and so comfy because you just map very quickly, you don't have to think about anything, you don't have to aim anything, you just zoom boom boom, and that's it. Like, you don't think about anything, and it's very fast. So that's it for this guide. I think the video is going to be a little bit long, but I wanted to explain everything about this character because I'm having so much fun on this character, even though I haven't been playing that much in the few recent days, been busy with other things. But that's it. I'm gonna continue with some videos with tips for Path of Exile, but I'm probably also going to upload some content for Baldur's Gate, because I'm checking out and revisiting Baldur's Gate enhanced editions right now in preparation for Baldur's Gate 3, which is supposed to come out next month. I think it's gonna be delayed because they don't have a date yet, like a specific date, and based on what the developers have been talking about, they're probably gonna push it maybe a month or two. But whenever Baldur's Gate 3 comes out, I'm definitely gonna be playing a shit ton of it, so you can expect extra content from that. But I am going to be still posting Path of Exile videos whenever I play it and whenever something interesting happens, or whenever I have a good video with tips for Path of Exile. But that's it. Thank you guys for watching. See you next time.